Hi guys, it's Marshall here with this week's live Q&A. So, I I like to test things to see how what resonates in the group, what clicks in the group for people, and polls really work for questions. Because usually when I take this format with questions of just asking, what questions do you have, I typically only get one or two. Today we got one from Amy, from Amelia. She says, I'm curious about expectation versus exploration in the context of romantic relationships. Is it healthy to have expectations? If so, examples. Okay, so one thing we need to understand, first of all, is we typically have the wrong definition when it comes to expectations. Most people think expectations are desires. But in reality, expectations are a pressure for someone else to meet. It's something that someone else must meet, or we're going to do something or not do something. Desires are different. When we have relationship desires, we're looking for a particular kind of experience. We're looking to feel and have a particular kind of emotional experience, basically. So when it comes to romantic relationships, we want to be clear on what we want to be experiencing on a regular basis, whether that's love, kindness, softness, approval, or whatever, attention, passion, things like that. Those are realistic desires to have in a relationship. When we get into expectations, though, expectations are things that we expect someone else to be without communicating that with them. And that's where we get into trouble. Is we're a lot of times people use expectations to shape the other person, to try to get them to conform to some sort of ideal with ourselves, rather than us showing up in a relationship and just simply agreeing with who they are and saying, oh, okay, I accept you for who you are. And when I'm able to accept somebody for who they are, I can then understand how they fit what I'm looking for, or how they don't fit what I'm looking for. The one thing codependency has us typically doing is asking one question. Healthy people ask two questions, and they ask them in a very specific order. Codependency only has one question, and that is, how do I fit them? When healthy people are coming from a premise of understanding their own value, their own primacy, i.e. they come first in their relationships, in their lives, they ask a different question. They ask, how do they fit me? And as they get to know this person, if they find out that they are, this person is fitting what they're looking for, naturally, because that's the person, then they can ask the question over time, how do I fit them? So we make sure we're very conscious about where they're coming from, what they're looking for, and what we're looking for. And that's the function of dating, is to find out where we fit and how we fit with people. This is one reason healthy people go slow, typically, in their dating experience. This is why they have very clear boundaries about what things will and won't be in their relationship. They know themselves. They know what works for them. They know what doesn't work for them. And they're willing to walk away from relationships that don't work for them. They've embraced the discomfort of being alone and dealing with loneliness and dealing with adult needs that go unmet at times for that. So that's the function here. When we deal with expectations, we need to be very honest with what we're looking for, and not project it onto somebody, not to try to shape them to fit into what we are looking for, but to really be sober, be conscious about who they are, and see how they fit what we desire. So take your expectations and look for the desire in them, and then pull it out of that and say, I desire, chemistry. I desire, dry humor. I desire intelligence. I desire attraction, or whatever it might be. That makes it a lot easier to have an awareness of how that other person fits you. So often when we go in with expectations, people are like, well, it's got to be this way. Oh, they're not this way. Well, why aren't they? We tend to try to control them change them. So we're reversing that by being complete ownership of our own desires. Let's see. So that's my answer to Amelia's. Healthy example. Is it healthy to have expectations? Yes. And there's, it's healthy to have desires, what you want to experience in a relationship. One desire that's not healthy is a desire that they never have a problem, or that they don't have bad days, or they don't get upset, those kind of things. And I think, normal, healthy functioning systems have a positive, warm regard. They have generosity, they have space for the other person and the human nature of it. And we cultivate that for ourselves, we can cultivate that for others. And that's the reason I bring this up, is because some of us that are going to watch this are dealing with the fantasy that codependency typically creates. And it's this idea that there would never be a problem, that everything would be idyllic. The other person would know exactly what we want when we want it. We would know what they want when they want it. We could just magically make this work and everybody would be fine. That's not going to happen. Real relationships are going to have friction. They're going to have confusion. They're going to have miscommunication. And how we deal with that is what makes a relationship survive or not survive. So that is my answer for you, Amy. And then we had a couple of themes show up in the group. Let me go over here. Why do we fight to stay in relationships once we realize that they are abusive, toxic, or damaging? This is where we're buying into this fantasy I just referenced. And I'm actually working on a book that I'm going to call The Fantasy. And it's really about the idea that codependency, we craft this idea of what the relationship should be like, what they should be like, and what we should be like. And we buy into this. And when we meet somebody, especially when we have those deeply unmet needs and we have shame filling the space of where love should be, we haven't resolved that shame, we haven't integrated the love, we really are going to be hungry for whatever kind of morsel we get, whatever, what I call table scraps of love we get from this other person. And narcissists are really good at that. They're very charming. They're very endearing. They say grandiose things, which make us go into a euphoria. So, oh my God, I'm the best person he's ever known. My word. Well, I've always wanted to hear this. This is so magical and powerful for me. The reason we stay in these toxic relationships is because we're buying into our own fantasy that this person who's by their behavior demonstrated they're not a healthy, safe person could change. And that's the fantasy. We think our love could change them. We think all they need is just a little love. They just need a little more time. They would just let us help fix them. That they would be that magnificent person they were when we first met them. That's because we're not acknowledging who these people choose to be, what they demonstrate themselves to be by their behavior. This is why I'm a broken record about this. People teach you who they are by how they treat you and how they treat others. Their words are bullshit. Action is the truth, period. If someone's words and their actions do not line up, they lack integrity. If they lack integrity, they're not trustworthy. Leave. And another reason people get stuck in these toxic relationships, we don't want to deal with the loneliness. We don't want to deal with the shame. We don't want to deal with the emptiness that we've been running from because we didn't get what we needed early in our life actively. So this is really fundamentally about those unmet childhood needs of attention, of praise, of presence, of affection, of comfort, of consoling, of protection. When these needs are met, when we are able to release the shame from them, because that's the shame that binds us to these codependent behaviors, to this fantasy that keeps us stuck, we're able to release that, and we're able to connect with love back into those places. We fill those places with the love that deserved and should have been there. We start to see differently what's going on for us and for them. Our brain changes because we're feeding it different points of view. Points of view is, I love myself. Does this person's behavior treat me well? No. Well, then I'm going to confront this, and if this behavior doesn't change, then I'm going to leave this, because we are no longer committed unconditionally to a relationship, to a person. We are committed to ourselves unconditionally, not to another person. Does that make sense? Because a lot of times codependency has us committing unconditionally to someone else, and then that just leads to havoc in our lives. So, but that's one reason we stay stuck, is because we have a fear of loneliness. We have a fear that there wouldn't be somebody else. We have a fear of facing the lack of love we feel for ourselves. We do not know who we are beyond having a relationship with someone else, and we have to deal with the shame that's there. So yeah, that's why we need to face that. That's why we need to deal with that. Another thing is the trauma bond, the love addiction. This is where we're chemically hooked on the person because of a concept called intermittent validation or intermittent reinforcement, where we get hooked on the highs when they're love bombing us, and those big deep lows when they're discarding us and they're devaluing us make us hurt a lot. So we crave that hit that we get when they love us. So when they love bomb us because we did something right, it gives us a sense of power and control over them. Then we get that really big high. When we get that low again, we get that high. That hooks us on them. And we got to break out of that. Part of that's breaking the fantasy and coming to real acceptance that this individual isn't healthy. They're never going to be healthy, because fundamentally we can't fix people, and we can't fix people because people only change by their own consent. Think about that. It's an internal choice they make, completely separate from you or anybody else. People change of their own accord. And if a person like a narcissist who doesn't see a problem with who they are, why would they change? The only people who make change are people who have self-awareness. They're going to sit there and go, there's something here that I want to change because I'm tired of this pain. I'm tired of this outcome. Is a narcissist going to do that? When one of their core factors is there's nothing wrong with me, it's all you? No, they're not going to have that self-reflection. I have seen narcissists feign self-reflection. I've personally gone through it where they're like, I have this come to Jesus moment, and there's this, I see what I've been doing. And then 2 days later, they're like, I've been thinking about everything I've been doing, and I've been taking care of you. I've been tolerating you. I mean, my own parents did this to me. That it's mind blowing. I thought for a moment, wow, they're having a realization, and then they come back and they say, I've been tolerating you. What? Tolerating me? The whole context is I've been helping take care of you for 5 years. You're going to come here and tell me you're tolerating me. So yeah, it was mind-blowing. They don't get it. They don't have the ability to self-reflect. When we can really accept that, we become free of their cycle. Secondly, we have to realize that healthy relationships never produce these kinds of results. Healthy relationships, you're not going to have fights about who to blame. You're going to have conflict over situations and a difference of opinion about how to deal with it. But there's going to be a process involved in that conflict that says, I understand you, I hear you, I respect what you're feeling. They're not going to name call. They're not going to threaten you. They're not going to stonewall. They're not going to get defensive. And if they are going to go into that space, they're going to catch themselves and step back and say, I need a moment. I need to be okay here because this isn't working for me. Healthy relationships adore the other. They both adore each other. They have a kindness towards each other. They're not coming in with a suspicion or why you're doing this. You're cheating, you're lying. How about that thing you did 20 years ago? That kind of thing that's got to stop. They don't do that. They have a positive trust in the other individual that other individual's core intention is good. They just need to understand what's going on. They're loving, they're playful, they're involved. They prioritize the other person. So that the world isn't about them, it's about us. So healthy relationships do not have the kind of drama and chaos the narcissistic codependent dynamics do. They can actually feel a little boring at times for people. So I want you to think about that as you consider relationships in your life, especially if you're looking at the present one you're in and wondering if it's healthy or not. Look at how your conflict is being managed. Look how your space is being managed. Look at how your emotions are being respected. That's essential. If they're not being respected, you're in a jeopardizing toxic relationship there. So last thing is to reinforce the idea of observe, don't absorb. That's the concept that sets us free from this. And it can be really difficult depending on what kind of proximity we have with the narcissist. What are we dealing with on a chronic basis? That can get exhausting. So we got to take time to play. We got to take time to breathe and to have some space with them. So that answers today's questions. Let me know if you guys have any more. Thank you for being a part of Thrive. And remember, you're worth loving, you're worth knowing, and you're worth keeping. I'll talk to you guys next week. Okay? Bye-bye.